Hi, welcome back to EducateTube.com. My name is Sipsky, your host. In this video, I want to talk about what you need and what you need to do in order to record a long recording events like at least 3 hours long. Let's talk about it right now. Alright, so you're in charge of recording a long video events. I'm talking about 3 hours long. Actually, last week I was doing that and I had to get ready and prepare for it. It is very important that you don't get it wrong. If you make a mistake, that's it, you're done. So you got to make sure that you have the following done. Let me go through the list and hopefully you'll find this very helpful. Number one, cameras. The camera that I used was the Panasonic GH4 and the Sony FS700R. Now I have other camera like Fuji X-T3 and Sony A7R III and Sigma, but I decided not to use those camera because the number one reason why you want to use a camera is that it's reliable. That's the key, reliable. So in other words, it doesn't overheat. Sony cameras are known for overheating. For example, the A7 series, even the A7S III, if you record it for a long take and it's in 4K and if it's a hot day, it might overheat. You do not want that to happen, especially when you're recording for over 3 hours continuously. You have to make sure this does not happen. This is why I went with the Panasonic GH4. I tested it and it works super well. In fact, I had no issue whatsoever using Panasonic GH4 and my Sony FS700R. They are very reliable camera. I didn't have to worry about whether it's going to overheat or not. This event has confirmed that when I recorded it. So that's very important. When you get a gear, it's not the latest greatest gear. You need to test those gear viciously. It's very important that you don't get it wrong. Your clients will be very upset if you did not do a job. Even you have a $10,000 equipment, but it is not reliable, you're in big trouble. So you got to make sure it is reliable. So another important thing is that when I record this long event, the camera must have a continuous recording feature. For example, the GH4 can do that as well as my Sony FS700R. They can record for a long time. The important thing, of course, is that you got to have a good batteries that will allow it to record for a long period of time. Now the amazing part is the Panasonic GH4 with just that standard battery that I put in was able to go right through 3 hours recording continuously without being completely drained. In fact, when I look at the battery, it was still about 50% after 3 hours of recording. That's amazing. I mean, I didn't even have to rely on my second battery and have to change it right away because remember some of these events when you're recording, it is continuous. You cannot have time to stop because sometimes the speaker is speaking from one to another. It's going to be fast, and you have less than 2 minutes to get it set up. And so you do not want to touch your equipment. That is very important. You have to all ready and ready to go. Another thing is you should always have minimum of 2 cameras. The first camera, of course, is the main camera that is standing and is on a wide angle lens that allows you to see pretty much the speaker and maybe a bit of the background. So it should be set up in a tripod stand that's secured and is not movable. And you gotta make sure that you redirect the speaker that this is where you're gonna film and this is where the center of the focus will be. The second camera, the GH4 that I used, is actually allowing me to move around from one side to another. So I'm able to take different angle of the video. So that's very important. So minimum of 2 cameras. Now if you're a 1 camera person, that's all you need and that's all you can do because one is set up in a tripod stand that's fixed. The other one is the one that you move. You cannot have 2 more camera or extra camera because you would actually need extra hands. So you actually need 2 cameramen. Okay, so just keep that in mind. 1 camera fixed in the tripod, focusing on the speaker. The other camera you can move around. The next thing that's very important is audio. Audio is actually more important than the camera itself. In fact, what I ended up doing was I had 3 audio sources. One, as you can see here, the wireless. So I had a wireless for the speaker. Now the problem is that I didn't know how the event was going to go, so I told the speaker that he would have to clip on this wireless lav mic to himself and whoever is going to do the main talking. So that's very important. So you have that main mic hook up to the main camera, this one here. The good thing about this Sony FS700R is that it has two XLR input. So as you can see here, the first one is this one here. So that's one of the audio input. It's more of a general audio that I can sync with. So that's the main one. Then the second one is this one here, the XLR input, which I hook up my wireless mic receiver connected to it. So that will have a good audio recording. And then the third one is using a external recorder, the field audio recorder, which is very important. It is a good recording sound, so you got to place it close enough to the speaker but not visible to the audience. So that's my third audio recording. So you have three different audio sources. Actually, there's actually four, which is the Panasonic GH4. So I actually have four audio recording to guarantee that I will have decent recording of the audio. You cannot mess up the audio when you record this live event. That's at least 3 hours long. The video quality can be okay, but the audio recording has to be clear and very little background noise. So that's very important. Get your audio system in place. Minimum of 3 different sources. Wireless, a good external audio recorder, and as well as the main one. I would say get the fourth one just in case the other 3 may not work. This is how important the audio recording system has to be for your live events. Number 3, make sure you prepare ahead of time. I would say go and visit the area that you're going to record, set up the camera, and then ask the people who's in charge how is the speaker going to be speaking, where would he be or she would be placed, and then you would aim that camera, the main camera, fixed on a tripod, and that's where you are going to film it. And then of course, make sure you do your white balance, making sure you test your audio, making sure the day before you charge all your batteries. This camera, for example, I love this camera, the FS700R, even though it's an old camera, but it's very reliable. The battery, just like the GH4, lasts for hours. This one, for example, the big one that I have, the 900 series. Let me just show you right now. This is actually a third-party battery. This is the NPF 900 series. It lasts at least 4 or 5 hours. So when I was recording for 3 hours, there was still about almost 50% left, which is awesome. That means I could probably record another 2 hours without any issue. So having a camera without any wire, just relying on this particular battery that will go on and on for at least 4 or 5 hours is what you want. Okay, basically that's the kind of system you want. You want to be able to record for 4 or 5 hours without any issue whatsoever. Have everything set up the day before. Try your equipment, get all the battery, test your audio. Everything has to be done a day prior to recording this live event. In fact, you would want to also go in an hour before, making sure that there is no change in the settings, and if there is, you have to adjust accordingly. Very important. I mentioned about tripod stand, and that's also very important to have a fixed tripod stand for the main camera. Okay, so have that and make sure you tell the event organizer that this is where the tripod is going to be fixed and this is where you're going to record the camera. So when people are walking towards the stage, for example, when they're speaking, they need to know that there is a fixed tripod there and that they cannot hit this tripod or they cannot come in contact with the tripod. This is where you're going to film it. It has to be stationary. So having a good tripod stand is great. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but it has to be quite heavy so that it will be in place. It won't shake when you record your video. So those are the 4 things that you need to have available for your recording of live events. Liability of the cameras, making sure that it can record for a long period of time and there's no overheating issue. Audio has to be great, and you have to have multiple audio recorders to do that, including wireless, and especially a lav mic, that wireless lav mic that can be hooked up to the speakers. Make sure you prepare ahead of time, making sure you test all your gears, have all the system in place. Batteries, lav mic, everything has to be tested the day before or even an hour before the events. Tripod stand have to be set up, making sure that it's very solid and stable. Also, lighting is important. However, in my case, I had to rely on natural lights, which is not always the best thing because the light can go on and off. You got to make sure that your white balance is not on auto, but rather it has to be adjusted manually. And that the aperture is not too wide, so when there's sun coming in, it will not blow up the image. Okay, so you want it a little bit darker, underexposed, the image, and so in case there is more light coming in from the natural light, then you can bring up the exposure during the editing of the video. Yeah, so that was my issue, was the lighting system. I could not control that, so you need to adjust that accordingly. I would say if you can adjust the light, especially when recording indoors, do that, okay? But again, that's an extra step that you need to do, and you need to work that out with your event organizer. And another thing that I should have done during this live events, which I learned from this mistake, is the fact that my monopods that I have wasn't long enough. So if I had a longer monopods, I would be able to keep it on a more firm ground, and I'd be able to record in a steady way. Now my camera is GH4, it doesn't have a built-in internal stabilization, and so that made the video a bit shaky. So I had to be very careful how I hold the camera, and sometimes I get really tired. I can see that there was shaking involved in my secondary camera, the GH4. The good news is that because I have a fixed camera in front, I can always move back and forth in terms of when I'm editing the video. So if the footage was too shaky, then I will switch back to the main camera, and that's fixed. So that's the thing. But if I had to do it again, I would probably get a better monopod that is fixed to the ground, and so it will be a minimal shaking, and I have to make sure that it doesn't tilt too much as well, because there's also this side way of movement in the camera, and you want to keep everything in a more fixed and stand still. And that's important because otherwise the image might look a little bit unprofessional, unless you want that kind of feeling that is always in a kind of dynamic motion. So that's maybe okay, but I wouldn't want to put too much of that in every shot. I maybe 1 or 2 shot, right, from time to time. Yes, get a good monopod and fix it on the ground, so when you're filming the second camera on a GH4 for example, then you get a very steady, good looking secondary shot. Okay, so you have now the secondary and the main shot. You can switch back and forth during your video editing. And so those are my tips for you guys that at least I learned from filming a 3 hours long event. And now as a videographer, you might also have to be a photographer. So you may have to use one of your camera. You might want to bring the third camera, a good one for photography. I actually just used the GH4 for photography because I didn't know that they want me to take pictures as well, so I ended up using that, and it turned out pretty good. Although, you know, if I want to do a better job, I should have got my Sony a7R III and do that, but I didn't know that I was going to be a photographer as well. Right, so those are the things that you might be aware of when you're filming long video events. When you're a one-person cameraman or woman, then this is what you need to do. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. I'll talk to you soon. Don't forget to subscribe and give me a little heart of appreciation. Thank you. Bye.